Welcome back to Motorcycle Ride and a return to our Touring Sportster build. And in this episode, I'm going to be doing something I didn't really want to do, modify the exhaust. But we'll talk about that later in a second. And understand this is also a jump back in history, because I actually filmed this video about 4 months ago when I made the modification in anticipation of doing this series, so that at the end of the video I could give you my opinion of how that worked out after putting 2,000-3,000 miles on it and actually filming videos for this channel. Because if you go back in the my first videos of doing POV riding, point of view riding, you can see how the bike sounded before the modifications, and then towards the later part when I started doing 4K videos, you can see how it worked after and the sound difference. Now let's talk about probably the most common modification people do to Sportsters right when they buy them: swapping out the exhaust system, because everybody wants that Harley-Davidson sound. Now, I bought this used, and when I picked it up, it had a wonderful Vance and Hines system, probably considered one of the best for this model, and it sounded great. But I want to get on my soapbox for a minute or two, so please forgive me. For a daily driver or something you're doing a lot of distance, I personally hate loud bikes. Three main reasons. A, they draw a lot of unwanted attention. Now, back in my high horsepower days, you know, I go out and ride with my friends and stuff like that, and invariably we would get harassed by the police, even if we weren't doing that much faster than speed limit. I still feel it's safer to go a little bit faster than speed in all situations, because it puts the responsibility on me. A police officer sees a group of bikes moving slightly faster than traffic for safety reasons, and you have a few loud bikes on there, well, it sounds like we are going really fast. We are on it, even if we're not. So, you know, a cop, he's going to pull you over and give you a ticket for what they think you probably deserve and have done. Maybe they just caught you a little bit. So even if they're only giving you a ticket for 10 miles over, they feel it's deserved. I cannot tell you how many times that I've been busted passing a cop that I didn't see in time, going probably deservedly of a speeding ticket on my personal bikes, which were quiet, and not been bothered at all. My presumption is that they might see me moving quicker or something like that, but because I don't sound like it, because there's not drama involved in it, I don't sound like I'm on the gas, they just let me go. It's not that big deal. They think that I am not one of those guys that's really out there all the time speeding, even though my bike probably had 150, 160 horsepower at the time, and I enjoyed it. So, number one reason is that it just draws too much attention. Number two reason is that old adage that loud pipes save lives. I am a firm believer that that just isn't true. Because if you've ever heard a loud bike coming towards you, you can't hear it until it gets right next to you or past you. In fact, the stereotypical sound people make when they see race bikes going by is, what's that? Or it gets loud really fast, and then it kind of pitch goes down because of the Doppler effect and stuff like that. Same with Harleys. Well, put yourself in the position of a car, and you've all been that. The windows are up, you're just going down the highway, maybe the radio is turned on, not too loud, just enough to hear what's going on. You're doing along here. You don't hear that loud bike until it is right there. And what do? What's that? How many times have you been turned into? Well, could it be that it's because you startled the person next to you? I would much rather them not know I am there until I am past them. It's safer for me that way, and a quiet bike serves that purpose. Lastly, it's annoying. I mean, how many of y'all seen Dumb and Dumber? What's that Bill Paxton sound that he makes, the most annoying sound in the world? Well, just bring that down a few octaves, and what do you have? Harley. Going going on forever, it gets annoying. One of the most enjoyable things I have on a motorcycle is just going through the backcountry, hill country in Texas. I'm in top gear, nice curves and stuff like that. If you're on a quiet bike, you got your foam earplugs in and your full face helmet, like how I ride, all I hear is the wind. It's not howling noise, it's just the movement of the wind, and you're just kind of, it's like a relaxing flying through the curves. I really enjoy that. It is really relaxing to me. Same just going down the highway, you're just kind of flying, coasting along. Then, instead of this, you get, it's just not the same to me. So for a, garage queen going out to coffee with the guys and stuff like that on the weekend, you take it out, you're only putting, 500,000 miles a year on your bike, yeah, do whatever you want. It's kind of fun. There is drama to that one. But for a day out rider or something you're doing distance in, I would much rather have a quiet bike. So the very first modifications I did to this bike was I took that Vance and Hines system off and sold it and went online and bought a really cheap, practically unused stock exhaust system. And that's what I've got on right now. So talking about modifications for how I'm using the bike, very first thing we're going to do right now is I'm going to make this thing louder. And I'm going to do that, make my bike worse for me because of y'all. I started doing these videos and stuff like that. When I found is, microphones, they kind of bring loud noises down and quiet noises up, and they kind of do it in even. So if you don't have a loud exhaust as you're going down the road, it's going to bring up other sounds. And a Sportster engine makes a lot of valve train and gear noise. So my videos just don't sound as good as the other ones that have that kind of exhaust brought up a little bit to hide this. So I just want to make this a little bit louder so that the exhaust is loud enough that it brings down the mechanical noise to make my videos sound better. And I'm going to do this by drilling out the plug in this exhaust system because these are cheap. And if I really hate it, I can go online for 50 bucks and find somebody that took their stock ones off and buy them off of Marketplace or Craigslist or something like that. So let me show you how traditionally we used to do this in the old days to stock bikes. Now traditionally, if you look up a stock exhaust pipe, you will see, there's a plug in there. You cannot see through the exhaust pipe. What that does is it actually forces the air, because if you've got an obstruction in the pipe, it forces the air as it comes around to go around that obstruction, and all around that they have that, kind of fibrous, sometimes it's steel wool, sometimes it's other non-flammable fibers, that the air passes through and that muffles the sound going through that process. It also adds a lot of back pressure because it takes drag getting that through the air. Now the traditional hot rodders, what they would do is they would just take everything out of the muffler. So from the exhaust pipe to the end of the pipe, there was nothing obstructing it. And that does give you more horsepower up high. But you actually need a little bit of back pressure if you want low end to mid-range power. So the balance has always been how much back pressure to do. Well, manufacturers like Harley, they would rather give you a bike that's very easy to ride straight off the showroom floor and usable for most people's situations. So they kind of cater it to low to mid-range power. Now, do they take it too far? Yeah, probably. But you don't want to totally drill out something like that plug. We're going to just put a small hole in it to make it more of a straight shot for some gas to give us a little bit more volume. And that's what we did back in the old days with like Kawasaki's, even Triumphs and MGs did the same exact thing. The downside is it is going to make it louder, obviously, but it will adjust the power delivery a little bit. Up into a point. There's always kind of a balancing act, and there's people out there that know a lot more than me to do. This is just a simple solution to get the sound that most people associate with a big V-twin engine. To do it, I went in my shop and I made up a little jig. I took a dowel, the exact size of that pipe I just showed you, and I drilled a hole the size of the drill bit I want to do in the dead center of that one. That way it'll get the hole I'm going to drill into that plug dead center. Is that important? I'm not 100% sure. I probably doesn't matter whatsoever. It's just, it made me feel good to do it that way. Now that plug, I'm told, is only about 3 millimeters thick, but traditionally they aren't very hard, so you don't want to drill too far into it, just enough to get a little pass resistance. And we're going to drill this out for the sound. But before I do that one, how about I show you what it sounds like now? So right now I have the microphone mounted on the camera, so it'll kind of give you the idea of what it sounds like to somebody else. It's cold. Now let's drill it out. I'm actually starting out with a 1/2-inch hole simply because you can't make a hole smaller. You can only drill it out bigger. And if I want more volume for the audio, if it doesn't make any difference, I can always use a step bit once this is established to make it bigger. I do know a lot of people that start out with 3/8, but I'm going to start out with a 1/2 inch simply because that bit was what I have available. So here we go. And remember, you just want to go a little bit. It's only a little bit. Once the resistance isn't there, stop. That's it. Now do the other one the same way. And like before, the mic's on the camera, and when I do the drive-by on the road, I'll have it right around 3,000 RPMs, which is kind of what you would be doing going down the highway. So the conclusion of drilling out the plugs is I don't think it's louder. It's got a lower pitch to it, but it does get louder as I pull away. And when I first got this, and one of the reasons why the very first model I was doing was to put that stock exhaust system back on, is because 30 feet that way at the time the baby was only a month old, so I didn't want to wake her up. She's now about 2 years old. I have a feeling if I pulled away halfway, quarter throttle, that might be loud enough to wake her up. So I'm going to have to be very careful around here. Obviously it doesn't sound as good as a full system, but it does have a little bit more bass to it. And if I want to increase that bass, I can enlarge the hole a little bit, but it's not as loud as a full system. It's just a 1/2-inch hole in the exhaust. And I'm about to go record a ride to see if that solves my problem. Because if it doesn't, I'm on the online searching for some new mufflers. Okay, now 4 months later, my review of this is the bike is louder. Other people have noticed it, but it's not obnoxiously loud. I'm not shaking windows and stuff like that. People don't really hear me coming down the road other than maybe a house or two down the street, and y'all saw that in the video. So I was very happy with the sound on my videos because all of this clatter pretty much disappeared. It also, before I did it, I experimented where I could put mics, and I'm using these wireless mics, and I had it mounted way back here. So even back here, or before I did the mods, it was picking up the mechanical noise of the engine. After the mods, it was just recording it was bringing up the exhaust and bringing down that mechanical sound. So audibly, it was better. But I will tell you this, in real life, I am not going to tell you it was a quality improvement. Aftermarket exhaust systems sound so much better in the real world. This is kind of a tinny louder. It's really hard to explain, but you can tell the difference. This does not sound as good as even a cheap aftermarket system. But it's only going to cost you $8 for a drill bit and maybe a piece of wood to do, and you can get 80% there. So that's my final opinion. It's louder, it served my purposes, but it's not the quality sound of a true aftermarket system. The Vance & Hines, quality-wise, sounded much, much better, and in hindsight, now that I am making this channel, I probably would have been better off just taking that system apart and really packing it with some baffling to bring the decibels down. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, picked up a few tips and tricks and that kind of stuff. But in the end, really, just go out for a motorcycle ride. You'll be much happier. Be safe, have fun.